The latest tweet by Ronald has encouraged me to make this video to try to explain to both Q and his believers, and the broader public, really, why what's happening right now with Q is so ridiculous. So, if we look back, Ronald had said on, well, it doesn't really matter when. He said a few days ago that he was going to make it so that there would be a salt rotation. All that means is, at least in practical terms, Q will no longer have the same trip code even if he enters the same password. Now, as 8chan's maintainer, and as someone who wrote the majority of 8chan's software, I can say unequivocally that trip codes are insecure. They are completely insecure for what they're being used for by Q. There is no reason to be using trip codes and not another technology. Any attempt to come up with a reason is, in my enlightened opinion, just an excuse. There is literally no one with more expertise about how insecure trip codes are than me. A single DES trip code can be broken with a graphics card in a half hour. DES is only 56 bits of search space, and a trip code does not even use all of the bits because it only supports certain characters. So it, it's absurd that the US military would use trip codes to encrypt or identify who is Q, right? And a lot of the Q people would say, oh, it's a public space, op, whatever that means. And there's certain things that have to be followed by. Like, yes, it's a public space op, so it should be even more secure. Because if it isn't, anybody can take over Q. In fact, how do you know that the deep state didn't take over Q last year? How do we know that 8kun isn't the deep state? These are real questions, right? If you believe that the deep state exists, and I'm not saying that it does, but if it did, it would be trivial for them to figure out a way to take over Q with their cryptologists and cryptanalysts. They could easily find a way, even with the salt, to figure out the password to Q. Alright, so, that being the case, here is the deal, QAnon community. Q, I am issuing you a challenge. You need to explain not why you don't want to use PGP, not why you don't want to use GNU PG, right? Because that's really not the issue here. I don't care that your boomer mind misread some BBC article about PGP, okay? That's not the issue. You need to explain why there is no public crypto system on Earth that you can use. Why can't you use, for example, Bitcoin for verification? If Bitcoin signatures were hacked, millions of dollars would be at stake. A $1 billion market would immediately collapse. All of the other cryptocurrencies which use the same algorithm to sign as Bitcoin would immediately collapse. So Bitcoin signatures are actually a smart alternative in this case. All you would need to do is generate a Bitcoin address. This isn't for money, right? You're just using it to sign. You can send back any Bitcoin that's sent to you, fine. All you would need to do is give out a Bitcoin address and sign your messages. And you don't even have to stop using 8kun Q. You see what I mean? This really gives me the opportunity to talk longer because it's just a format where I can really speak my mind because you really moved me to. You don't even need to leave 8kun Q if you're going to use Bitcoin addresses to sign. You can start doing it on 8kun, and when it inevitably suffers another downtime, then you can move to Gab or Voat or whatever. See, the problem with you and your followers is that you latch on to certain words and phrases, but you don't understand the larger context. So I wrote in one of my tweets that Q should move to Gab. And you're like, oh, are you saying that, if he uses signatures, he has to move to Gab? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. If you sign your messages with Bitcoin, for example, they can be verified no matter where you post them. You could write them down on paper and they could be verified. You could give out QR codes and they could be verified. Right now, the verification is entirely in the hands of Ron Watkins. It's entirely in the hands of Jim Watkins. And fine, you can even keep it that way, but just start providing signatures. And then you can start providing signatures on another site if you have to. This is just such a no-brainer. I don't understand why he hasn't done it years ago. Well, I do understand, but the reason has been better said by others. But if everything that Q says is true, there's no reason for him not to give out a Bitcoin address and start signing his messages. None. All right. Let's say you don't like Bitcoin for whatever reason. Your boomer mind immediately sees some negative article in the BBC. Oh no! There's some negative article in the BBC, which, by the way, you say is fake news, until they're saying something about an email bug in PGP. Are you kidding me? But anyway, so you don't like Bitcoin, whatever. You can use any cryptocurrency as a signature mechanism, because internally all cryptocurrencies require signatures to work. Even Ronald Watkins' famous Susu coin requires signatures. In fact, the very same ones that Bitcoin uses. So you can use Ethereum, ET hash, I believe it's called, to sign. You can use Monero, I believe, maybe not. You can use anything. Litecoin might have a different thing. I don't know, but and let's say that you don't like any of this, right? Let's say that for some reason QAnon just he can't use GNU PG, he can't use any PGP system. For some reason, it just has to be tripcodes. Tripcodes, the greatest security in the world, even though that they have been proven insecure for 40 years. We just need to use those tripcodes. Alright. So let's say that he doesn't like GNU PG, don't like Bitcoin, don't like Ethereum. You know what? PGP is not the only installable crypto system. There are ones that are based on libsodium that you could easily use. There are Java-based encryption programs. So there are just so many options, and the thing, Q community, is you guys gotta understand, you gotta explain why Q cannot use any of them. You can't just say, oh, he can't use PGP because there was an email bug in 2013. No. No. Which, by the way, it was an email bug. It has nothing at all to do with Q or how he posts. But you can't say that. What you have to do is prove why he cannot use any key mechanism at all. I want you to really point me to a so-called national security charter that allows him to use single DES encryption, but not keys, not the keys that are protecting billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency assets right now. Only tripcodes, that's it. I want you to show me that charter that says that single DES is okay, but all the other things invented by the NSA are not okay. Because you know what? The funny thing is that a lot of our encryption we have today was invented by the NSA. A lot of these signature systems, private public key pairs, and then signing and verifying, the NSA invented almost the great part of what we have. So it's ridiculous that the US government would not allow signatures, but would allow their operative to use tripcodes, which can be easily stolen by a state actor or the deep state or whatever at any time, right? So yeah, that's my challenge, Q community. I want to know why Q cannot use Bitcoin, Ethereum, GNU PG, why he cannot use a libsodium-based system. I want to know why he can't use anything. I want to know why it's got to be single DES tripcodes, and why Ronald Watkins has to be the sole point of failure? That's what I want to know, Q community. And I'm just tired of the the nonsense. And now Ronald Watkins cannot even rotate assault because his site is so broken. But Q just really needs him and really needs the salts. You know, Q, you just don't understand that I'm trying to help you here if you're not connected to Ron Watkins. But let's be real, you probably are, right? But I'm really trying to help you here because it doesn't hurt you to give out one of these signatures. And if you need it, you can move to Gab, Voat. You can move to Discuss comments. Like, you can move to Discuss comments on a BitChute video. You could you could email them to the owner of qmap.pub, you know what I mean? Or qalerts.app, right? Like, oh, it's just absurd. It's just so absurd. So, yeah, anyway, QAnon, if you are too dumb to understand what I just said, hit me up before answering me in another Q drop about how some 2013 email bug means you can't use PGP. And anyway, God bless the entire Q debunking community. Travis View, all you guys, you really are doing good work. And, this whole salt rotation thing really goes to show that QAnon and Ron Watkins they're more connected than the public knows. And, yep, that's all I gotta say. Alright. And if you really are not connected to Ron Q, drop a key, drop an address, stop screwing around. Anybody could steal your trip code at any moment. The deep state could take it, Ron could take it, Jim could take it, a state actor could take it. And if some kid figures out how to break the salt system, whatever that they've got set up there, which I don't think it's that hard to break, it should be possible to break it just by using inputs and outputs, right? Like getting a bunch of secure trip code answers from the server and then figuring out the salt. I don't think that's impossible. So, Q, if you're really some LARPer out there, Ron Watkins is really relying on you to bring people to 8kun. Tom Rydell told me that you are the main way that they... Well, alright, let me not put words in his mouth, okay? Tom Rydell told me that they're very interested in the Q traffic. Yes. So, he's the president of NT Technology, and you are a cash cow for them, and, you need to drop a key or an address because, one day, if you are not connected to them, which I think you already are, but if you're not connected to them, if you're just some boomer that doesn't understand this technology stuff, and, Ron Watkins has got you tricked into thinking you don't need to give a key or a signature, a key or an address of any kind, right? Not only PGP, you can't use PGP 1.0 bugs of any kind. I don't even know what to say to you, right? Your days are numbered on 8kun. No matter what, your days are numbered on 8kun. Because 8kun's days are most likely numbered. I mean, you see how often it goes down, don't you? I mean, I can't really predict the future, can I? But 8kun has not had a record of success, and you giving a key or an address is just a way for you to verify yourself on some other site. I mean, Q, if you aren't connected to Ron, were you really happy how many months you had to go without getting to talk to your people? I mean, do you really like the barrel that Ron's got you over? He can take over your little cult at any time, and he can start speaking directly to your members. I mean, you've worked hard to build up this following. Don't let him take it. Alright, Q. I am expecting that key, and I'm expecting that address. And if you don't drop it, you are... There's no other way I can... The only two things I can see are either you are a boomer LARPer that just doesn't understand computers, or you are connected to Ron Watkins and he sees no reason to drop a signature because that can push people away from his site. Alright, that is all I gotta say. Thank you all for listening, and God bless. Bye-bye.